Elena Vasquez was 12 years old when her whole life changed. Her mother, Rosa, had just lost her job at a small hotel in the Bronx. They had no money left. The rent was due, and there was almost nothing to eat in their tiny apartment. Elena watched her mother cry at the kitchen table every night for a week. Then one day Rosa came home with news. She had found a job as a live-in maid at a big mansion in Connecticut. The pay was good. They would have a place to live. There was only one problem. Elena would have to leave her school, her friends, and everything she knew. "We have no choice," Mia Rosa said, holding her daughter's hands. "This is our only way." 2 weeks later, they arrived at the Harrington estate. Elena had never seen anything like it. The mansion was huge, bigger than her entire apartment building. It had white walls, tall windows, and a roof that seemed to touch the sky. The gardens stretched out in every direction, with flowers and trees and fountains. It looked like something from a fairy tale, but Elena did not feel like a princess. She felt small and scared. Rosa held her daughter's shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "We are guests here. No, we are less than guests. We are workers. You must stay quiet. You must stay invisible. Do not touch anything. Do not talk to anyone unless they talk to you first. Do you understand?" Elena nodded. She understood. They were poor, and the people who lived here were rich. That was how the world worked. Their room was small, located in the back of the house where the servants stayed. It had 2 narrow beds, a tiny bathroom, and 1 window that looked out at the garden. Compared to their old apartment, it was actually quite nice. But it felt strange. It felt like they did not belong. For the first 2 days, Elena followed her mother around the mansion. She watched Rosa clean floors, wash dishes, and fold laundry. The house had so many rooms that Elena lost count. There was a library with thousands of books. There was a kitchen bigger than their old apartment. There was a dining room with a table that could seat 40 people. But the strangest thing was how empty the house felt. Elena saw other servants. She saw cooks and gardeners and drivers. But she never saw the family who lived there. It was like the mansion was a beautiful ghost town. On the 3rd night, Elena could not sleep. Her bed was comfortable, but her mind was racing. She missed her old room. She missed her friends. She missed the sounds of the city, the cars and the sirens and the people talking on the street. Here, everything was silent. Then she heard it. Music. It was soft at first. So soft she thought she was dreaming. But then it grew louder. It was a piano, playing the most beautiful melody Elena had ever heard. The notes were sad and sweet, like someone crying through music. Elena sat up in bed. She looked at her mother, who was sleeping deeply. Rosa had worked hard all day and was exhausted. Slowly, quietly, Elena got out of bed. She opened the door and stepped into the dark hallway. The music was coming from somewhere deep inside the mansion. She knew she should not go. Her mother had told her to stay invisible, but the music pulled her forward like a rope around her heart. She walked through the dark halls, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. The mansion looked different at night. The shadows were long, and the paintings on the walls seemed to watch her with their eyes. But Elena was not afraid. The music made her brave. She followed the sound up a staircase, down another hall, and around a corner. Finally, she found it. A room with tall doors, slightly open, with golden light spilling out. Elena stopped and peeked through the crack. Inside was a music room. There was a grand piano, black and shiny, in the center of the room. Moonlight came through the large windows and mixed with the soft glow of a small lamp. And at the piano sat a boy. He looked about her age, maybe 12 or 13. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead and pale skin. He was wearing pajamas, like her. His fingers moved across the piano keys like water flowing over rocks, smooth and natural. But something was strange. His eyes were open, but they did not look at the piano. They did not look at his hands. They stared straight ahead at nothing. They were beautiful eyes, gray like storm clouds, but they were empty. They did not see. Elena realized with a shock that the boy was blind. She stood there for a long time watching him play. The music changed from sad to happy to sad again. It told a story without words. Elena felt tears in her eyes, though she did not know why. Finally, the boy stopped playing. He sat still for a moment, his hands resting on the keys. Then he turned his head slightly toward the door, toward the crack where Elena was hiding. She held her breath. Could he see her? No, that was impossible. He was blind. After a moment, the boy turned back to the piano and began playing again. Elena let out her breath slowly. She watched for a few more minutes, then quietly walked back to her room. She climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling. Her heart was beating fast. Who was that boy? Why did he play alone in the middle of the night? Why had no one told her there was a child in this house? Elena had many questions, but no answers. She only knew one thing for certain. She would come back tomorrow night. And the night after that, and the night after that. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, Elena did not feel so alone. Somewhere in this big, empty house, there was another child. A boy who played piano in the dark. A boy whose music spoke the words he could not say. She closed her eyes and listened. She could still hear the faint melody drifting through the walls. It was like a lullaby. Soft and sad and beautiful, Elena fell asleep with the music in her ears and a strange new feeling in her heart. She did not know it yet, but her life was about to change again. This time, it would change forever. The invisible girl had found the invisible boy, and nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, Elena woke up tired but excited. She had not slept well, but she did not care. All she could think about was the boy at the piano. She wanted to know everything about him. At breakfast, Elena sat with her mother in the small servants' dining room. Other workers came and went, eating quickly before starting their duties. Elena listened carefully to their conversations, hoping to learn something about the mysterious boy. She did not have to wait long. Two older maids sat at the next table, drinking coffee and talking in low voices. Elena pretended to eat her toast while she listened. "Did you hear the piano again last night?" one maid asked. The other nodded. "Every night. Same time." "That poor boy. It breaks my heart," the first maid said. "Such a tragedy." "The tragedy," the second maid repeated, shaking her head. "That is what Mr. Harrington calls him. His own son. Can you believe it?" Elena's heart sank. The boy's own father called him a tragedy. What kind of father would say such a thing? The maids continued talking. Elena learned that the boy's name was Marcus Harrington III. He was 13 years old, 1 year older than her. He had been blind since birth. Something had gone wrong when he was born, and his eyes never developed properly. He would never see anything for his entire life. His father was Jonathan Harrington, one of the richest men in America. He owned a huge technology company that made computers and phones. He was worth more than $4 billion. He had houses all over the world, private planes, and more money than he could ever spend. But he was ashamed of his son. Elena could not understand this. How could a father be ashamed of his own child? Marcus had done nothing wrong. He was just born different. The maids explained more. Jonathan Harrington had wanted a perfect heir, someone to take over his company when he got old, someone to carry on the family name. When Marcus was born blind, Jonathan was devastated. He saw it as a failure. His perfect plan was ruined, so he hid Marcus away. The boy had private tutors who came to the house. He never went to school. He never had friends his own age. He never left the mansion except for doctor's appointments. Jonathan kept him hidden from the world, like a secret he was ashamed of. "The boy spends all day alone," one maid whispered. "No friends, no family visits, just those cold tutors and his piano. At least he has the music," the other maid said. "It is the only thing that makes him happy." Elena felt anger rise in her chest. This was so unfair. Marcus had done nothing to deserve this loneliness. He was just a boy, like she was just a girl. They were both trapped in this mansion, both invisible to the people around them. Over the next few weeks, Elena learned more about Marcus. She learned that he was incredibly smart. His tutors said he could do math problems that most adults could not solve. He spoke 3 languages. He had read thousands of books in Braille. His mind was brilliant, but his heart was lonely. Every night, Elena crept down to the music room. She stood in the shadows by the door and watched Marcus play. His music was always emotional, sometimes happy but mostly sad. Elena felt like she could understand his feelings through the notes. The piano was how he spoke to the world. She wanted to talk to him. She wanted to walk into the room and say hello, but she was afraid. What if he got angry? What if he told someone, and her mother lost her job? Elena could not take that risk, so she stayed invisible. She watched and listened from the shadows. 3 weeks passed. Elena knew Marcus's schedule by heart now. She knew what time he woke up, what time he ate, what time his tutors came and left. She knew that he spent his afternoons in the library, running his fingers over Braille books. She knew that he ate dinner alone in his room because his father was almost never home. And she knew that every night, at exactly 9 o'clock, he went to the music room to play. On the 21st night, something different happened. Elena was standing at her usual spot by the door. Marcus was playing a Chopin piece, something slow and melancholy. His fingers moved gently over the keys, creating music that made Elena's heart ache. Then he stopped. His hands froze on the piano. His head tilted slightly to the side, like a dog listening to a distant sound. Elena held her breath. Had she made a noise? Had he heard her? "I know you were there," Marcus said. His voice was calm and clear. It was the first time Elena had heard him speak. His voice was nice, soft but strong. Elena did not move. She did not breathe. Maybe he was talking to someone else. Maybe he was just imagining things. "I have known since the first night," Marcus continued. He still did not turn around. His hands rested on the piano keys. "You come every night at the same time. You stand by the door. You think you are quiet, but I can hear you." Elena's face turned red with embarrassment. She wanted to run away, but her feet would not move. "Your breathing changes when I play something sad," Marcus said. "It gets slower and deeper, like the music is touching your heart." He paused. "No one else in this house cares about my music, but you do." Elena did not know what to say. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Slowly, Marcus turned on the piano bench. He faced her direction, though his gray eyes looked at nothing. There was no anger on his face. There was something else. "Hope, please," he said softly. "Do not go. I have not talked to anyone my own age in years. I just want to know who you are." Elena took a deep breath. She thought about her mother's warnings. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Do not talk to anyone. But Marcus was not just anyone. He was lonely, just like her. He was trapped, just like her. And his music had touched her heart in ways she could not explain. She stepped out of the shadows and into the golden light of the music room. "My name is Alina," she said, her voice shaking. "My mother is the new maid. I am sorry for spying on you. Your music is just so beautiful. I could not stay away." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. It was the first smile Alina had seen on him. It changed his whole face, making him look younger and happier. "Alina," he repeated, like he was tasting the word. "That is a pretty name. It sounds like music." Alina smiled too, even though he could not see it. "Thank you. Will you sit with me?" Marcus asked. He moved over on the piano bench, making space for her. "I want to hear about you, about everything, about the world outside this house." Alina walked across the room and sat down beside him. Their shoulders almost touched. Up close, she could see that his eyes were not empty at all. They were full of emotion, full of questions, full of hope. "What do you want to know?" she asked. Marcus laughed softly. "Everything. Tell me everything." And so she did. They talked until the sun came up, two invisible children finally seen by each other. It was the beginning of something neither of them expected. It was the beginning of a friendship that would change both of their lives forever. That first night of talking was just the beginning. After that, Alina came to the music room every night without fail. She and Marcus would talk for hours about everything and nothing. They shared their secrets, their dreams, and their fears. They became best friends in a way neither of them had ever experienced before. Marcus was hungry for information about the outside world. He had lived his whole life inside the mansion, and he wanted to know what he was missing. Alina told him about her old neighborhood in the Bronx. She described the busy streets, the loud music from car windows, the smell of food from corner restaurants. She told him about playing in the park, riding the subway, and eating ice cream on hot summer days. "What does the subway sound like?" Marcus asked one night, fascinated. Alina thought for a moment. "It is loud and rumbling like thunder under the ground. The doors make a beeping sound before they close. And there is always someone playing music or asking for money." Marcus smiled. "I would love to ride it someday." "Maybe you will," Alina said. "Maybe someday we will ride it together." Marcus also wanted to know about colors. He had never seen any color in his life. He did not know what blue or red or green looked like, so Alina tried her best to explain. "Blue is like the feeling of cool water on your skin," she said, "or the sound of a calm, peaceful song. Red is hot and loud, like anger or passion. Green is fresh, like the smell of grass after rain." Marcus listened carefully, trying to understand. "And what color are your eyes?" he asked. Alina blushed. No one had ever asked about her eyes before. "Brown," she said. "Dark brown, like chocolate." "Chocolate sounds beautiful," Marcus said with a grin. In return, Marcus taught Alina about music. She had taken some piano lessons at a community center years ago, but she had forgotten most of what she learned. Marcus was a patient teacher. He did not get frustrated when she made mistakes. He simply showed her the correct notes and encouraged her to try again. "Music is not about being perfect," he told her. "It is about feeling. If you feel the music in your heart, your fingers will follow." Alina practiced every night. She learned simple songs at first, then moved on to more difficult pieces. She would never be as good as Marcus, but that did not matter. She loved making music with him. They developed a secret ritual. Every night at 9 o'clock, after the household thought Marcus was asleep, Alina would sneak to the music room. They would play piano together, talk, laugh, and share snacks that Alina stole from the kitchen. Sometimes they played games. Marcus taught her chess, which he was very good at despite not being able to see the board. He used a special chess set with pieces he could feel. "How do you always beat me?" Alina complained one night after losing for the 5th time in a row. Marcus laughed. "I think differently than you. I see the whole game in my mind. Every piece, every possible move. You rely on your eyes. I rely on my brain." Alina shook her head in amazement. "Your brain must be very big." "It is normal sized," Marcus said with a smile. "I just use it more." The weeks turned into months. Alina and Marcus grew closer every day. She told him about her father, who had left when she was 5 and never came back. She told him about the hard times when there was no food and no money. She told him about feeling invisible her whole life. Marcus understood invisibility better than anyone. "My father looks right through me," he said one night, his voice sad, "like I am not even there. Sometimes I wonder if he wishes I was never born." Alina took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him. His hand was warm and soft, the hand of a pianist. "Do not say that," she said firmly. "You are the most special person I have ever met. Your father is a fool if he cannot see that." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "You are the only person who has ever said that to me. You are my only friend. Alina, my only real friend, and you are mine," she replied. What neither of them knew was that they were not as secret as they thought. The music room had a small camera hidden in the corner of the ceiling. It was so tiny that no one noticed it, but it was there, recording everything, every conversation, every piano lesson, every laugh and every tear. The camera sent its video to a computer in Jonathan Harrington's private office. Jonathan had installed cameras all over the mansion years ago. He told himself it was for security, but the truth was different. He wanted to control everything. He needed to know what was happening in his house at all times. Jonathan was rarely home. He spent most of his time traveling for business. But every night, no matter where he was in the world, he checked the camera feeds. He watched the empty hallways, the silent rooms, the lonely figure of his son playing piano alone. But lately, something had changed. His son was not alone anymore. Jonathan first noticed the maid's daughter 3 weeks after she started coming to the music room. He was in a hotel in Tokyo, checking the cameras on his laptop. When he saw the girl standing in the doorway, his first reaction was anger. Who was this child? Why was she spying on his son? He reached for his phone to call the head of his household staff. He would fire the maid immediately. Her daughter had no right to be near Marcus. But then he paused. On the screen, Marcus had stopped playing. He turned toward the door and said something Jonathan could not hear. The security cameras had video but no sound. Jonathan leaned closer, watching carefully. The girl stepped into the light. She walked to the piano and sat down next to Marcus. And then something happened that made Jonathan's heart stop. Marcus smiled. It was not a small smile or a polite smile. It was a real smile, wide and bright and full of joy. Jonathan had not seen his son smile like that in years. Maybe ever. He put down his phone. He did not call the staff. He just watched. Over the following weeks, Jonathan checked the camera footage every night. He saw his son and the maid's daughter playing piano together. He saw them laughing and talking. He saw a friendship growing between two lonely children. Something strange happened to Jonathan as he watched, something he had not felt in a long time. His cold heart began to warm. The wall he had built around himself began to crack. He still did not go home. He still did not talk to his son, but he stopped planning to fire the maid. He let the friendship continue, watching from thousands of miles away. Jonathan Harrington was not ready to be a father yet, but for the first time in years, he was starting to wonder if maybe he had made a terrible mistake. Maybe his son was not a tragedy after all. Maybe the real tragedy was how he had treated the boy. As Alina and Marcus laughed together in the music room, neither of them knew that a billionaire was watching every moment. And neither of them knew that their friendship was slowly changing more than just their own lives. It was changing the heart of a man who had forgotten how to love. Jonathan Harrington was not always a cold man. Once, many years ago, he had been different. He had been a young man with big dreams and a warm heart. He had fallen in love with a beautiful woman named Catherine, and they had planned to build a perfect life together. When Catherine became pregnant, Jonathan was the happiest man in the world. He bought the biggest mansion he could find. He hired the best doctors. He planned everything down to the smallest detail. His son would have the best of everything. His son would be perfect. But life does not care about plans. Marcus was born 3 weeks early. There were complications during the birth. The doctors worked for hours, trying to save both mother and child. In the end, they saved Marcus, but his eyes were damaged beyond repair. He would never see Catherine survive the birth, but something broke inside her that night. She looked at her blind baby and felt only guilt and sadness. She blamed herself for what happened. She fell into a deep depression that grew worse with every passing month. When Marcus was 2 years old, Catherine left. She packed a small bag one night and walked out the front door. She left a note saying she was sorry, that she could not handle it anymore, that she needed to find herself. She never came back. Jonathan was destroyed. The woman he loved had abandoned him. His son was blind. His perfect life had crumbled to pieces. He did not know how to handle so much pain, so he did what many hurt people do. He built walls around his heart. He buried himself in work. He grew his company from a small business to a global empire. He made billions of dollars. He became one of the most powerful men in the world, but he could not look at his son without feeling pain. Marcus reminded Jonathan of everything he had lost. Every time Jonathan saw those gray, unseeing eyes, he thought of Catherine. He thought of his failed plans. He thought of the perfect life that would never be. So he stayed away. He hired nannies and tutors to raise Marcus. He traveled constantly for business. When he was home, he kept to his own part of the mansion. He told himself it was for the best. Marcus was better off without a father who did not know how to love him. But deep down, Jonathan knew he was lying to himself. He was not protecting Marcus. He was running away from his own feelings. The cameras were his way of staying connected without getting close. He could watch his son from a distance, from the safety of hotel rooms and office buildings around the world. He could see that Marcus was alive and healthy. That was enough. That had to be enough until Alina came. Jonathan had watched the camera footage many times since the maid's daughter started visiting the music room. He had seen his son transform from a quiet, lonely boy into someone who laughed and smiled and talked for hours. He had seen Marcus come alive in a way he never had before. At first, Jonathan did not understand it. How could a poor girl from the Bronx change his son so much? She was not special. She was not educated. She was just a child. But as he watched more, he began to see what made Alina different. She treated Marcus like a normal person. She did not pity him or coddle him. She teased him, argued with him, and challenged him. She saw past his blindness to the person underneath. No one had ever done that before. The tutors treated Marcus like a problem to be solved. The servants treated him like glass that might break. And Jonathan himself had treated him like a reminder of everything that went wrong. But Alina just treated him like a friend. One night, Jonathan was watching the footage in his penthouse apartment in New York City. The meeting he was supposed to attend had been cancelled, so he had time to watch more carefully than usual. On the screen, Alina was describing a sunset to Marcus. "The sky is on fire," she said, her hands moving as she talked. "Not real fire, but it looks like it. Orange and red and pink, all mixed together. The clouds look like they are painted by an artist. And the sun is this big, bright ball, sinking slowly into the ground. It is the most beautiful thing you can see." Marcus listened with his eyes closed, trying to picture it. "I wish I could see it," he said quietly. "Just once." Alina was silent for a moment. Then she took his hand. "You can see it through me," she said. "Every time there is a beautiful sunset, I will describe it to you. I will be your eyes." Jonathan felt something wet on his cheek. He reached up and was shocked to find tears. He had not cried in years. He had not let himself feel anything in years. But watching this girl promise to be his son's eyes broke something open inside him. All the walls he had built, all the defenses he had constructed, began to crumble. He thought about all the sunsets he had seen in his life. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. He had never once thought to describe them to his son. He had never once tried to share the world with Marcus. What kind of father was he? The question haunted him. He could not sleep that night. He lay in his expensive bed in his expensive apartment and thought about all the years he had wasted, all the moments he had missed, all the love he had refused to give. Marcus was 14 now. He would be an adult in just a few years. How much time did Jonathan have left? How many more chances would he get? He thought about what would happen if he kept going the way he was going. Marcus would grow up and leave someday. He would make his own life, far away from the father who never loved him, and Jonathan would die alone, surrounded by money but without anyone who cared about him. Was that what he wanted? No. The answer came quickly and clearly. No, that was not what he wanted. He wanted to know his son. He wanted to hear him laugh in person, not through a camera. He wanted to sit beside him at the piano and listen to him play. But Jonathan was afraid. He had spent so many years running away that he did not know how to stop. He did not know how to be a father. He did not know how to love, so he did what he always did when faced with a difficult problem. He gathered information. He watched and waited and planned. He was not ready to act yet, but he was thinking about it, and that was more than he had done in 13 years. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Alina and Marcus continued their nightly meetings without knowing they were being watched. They played piano and talked and laughed. They became closer every day. Their friendship grew stronger with each passing week. Alina sometimes wondered about Marcus's father. Marcus rarely talked about him, and when he did, his voice was sad and bitter. "He does not care about me," Marcus said one night. "He never comes to see me. He never calls. I am nothing to him." Alina did not know what to say. She could not imagine a father who did not love his child. Her own father had left, but at least he had loved her when he was there. Jonathan seemed to have no love at all. "Maybe he is just scared," Alina said softly. "Maybe he does not know how to show it." Marcus shook his head. "You are too kind, Alina. Some people do not have hearts. My father is one of them." If only Marcus knew the truth. If only he knew that his father was watching right now, tears streaming down his face in a lonely apartment far away. If only he knew that Jonathan's heart was not missing at all. It was just frozen. And slowly, night by night, watching by watching, it was starting to thaw. Jonathan made a decision that night. He would go home, not to reveal himself to Marcus, not yet, but to see his son in person, to be in the same house, to take the first small step on a long journey back to being a father. He booked a flight for the following week. He did not know what would happen when he got there. He did not have a plan for once in his life. He just knew that he could not keep watching from a distance anymore. It was time to stop running. Rosa Vasquez worked harder than anyone Alina had ever known. She woke up at 5 in the morning and did not stop until 9 at night. She cleaned, cooked, organized, and managed the other servants with quiet strength. She never complained, not even when her back hurt or her feet were swollen. She did everything for one reason. Her daughter Rosa wanted Alina to have a better life. She wanted her to get an education, to have opportunities, to escape the poverty that had trapped their family for generations. That was why Rosa took this job. That was why she followed every rule perfectly. She could not afford to make mistakes. So when Rosa discovered that Alina had been sneaking out every night to meet the billionaire's son, her heart nearly stopped. It was a Sunday morning, around 2 in the morning. Rosa woke up suddenly from a bad dream. She reached out to check on Alina, as she did many nights. But Alina's bed was empty. The sheets were cold. Rosa's mind immediately went to the worst places. Had someone taken her daughter? Had Alina run away? Was she hurt somewhere in the dark halls of this enormous mansion? Rosa threw on her robe and rushed out of the room. The mansion was silent and shadowy. Her footsteps echoed on the marble floors as she searched frantically for her daughter. She checked the kitchen, the library, the gardens, nothing. Then she heard it, laughter coming from somewhere upstairs. Rosa followed the sound. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The laughter grew louder as she climbed the stairs and walked down the long hallway. Finally, she reached a room with tall doors, slightly open. Golden light spilled out into the hallway. Rosa pushed the door open and froze there. Sitting at a grand piano were Alina and Marcus Harrington. They were playing a silly duet together, bumping shoulders and laughing when they hit wrong notes. They looked completely happy, completely at ease, like two normal children without a care in the world. Alina. Rosa's voice was sharp with fear and anger. Alina jumped off the piano bench, her face turning pale. Marcus's laughter stopped immediately. He turned his head toward the door, his expression confused and worried. "Mama," Alina said, "I can explain." But Rosa was already crossing the room. She grabbed Alina by the arm, not hard enough to hurt but firm enough to show she was serious. "We are leaving now." "Wait," Marcus said, standing up from the bench. "Please, it is not her fault. I asked her to come. I wanted a friend." Rosa looked at the blind boy, and for a moment, her heart softened. She could see the loneliness in his face, the desperate hope in his voice, but she could not let that change her mind. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to lose everything now. "I am sorry, young sir," Rosa said, trying to keep her voice polite. "My daughter should not have been here. It will not happen again." She pulled Alina toward the door. Alina looked back at Marcus, tears forming in her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry." Marcus stood alone in the music room, his hands reaching out toward nothing. "Alina," he called. "Alina, please do not go." But Rosa did not stop. She dragged her daughter down the hallway, down the stairs, and back to their small room. She closed the door firmly and turned to face Alina. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" Rosa's voice was shaking. "Do you know how dangerous this is?" Alina was crying now. "Mama, he is just my friend. We were not doing anything wrong." "Not doing anything wrong." Rosa laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You have been sneaking into a billionaire's son's room in the middle of the night. If Mr. Harrington finds out, we will be thrown out on the street. Or worse, he could sue us. He could destroy us." "But Marcus is lonely," Alina pleaded. "His father does not care about him. Nobody talks to him. He has no friends." "I was just trying to help." Rosa sat down on her bed, suddenly exhausted. She looked at her daughter's tear-stained face and felt her anger melting away. Alina had a good heart, too good sometimes. She could not stand to see anyone suffering. "I know you meant well, Mia," Rosa said softly, "but the world does not work the way you want it to. Rich people and poor people do not mix. We are servants here. We are not family. We are not friends. We are workers who can be replaced at any moment." Alina sat down next to her mother. "But is that right? Is that fair?" Rosa sighed. "No, it is not fair. But it is how things are." They sat in silence for a long moment. Rosa was thinking about what to do next. She would have to apologize to the household manager in the morning. She would have to beg to keep her job. Maybe if she promised that Alina would never go near Marcus again, they would be allowed to stay. But deep down, Rosa knew the truth. Word would spread. Servants gossip. Eventually, Mr. Harrington would find out. And when he did, they would be gone. She started packing their bags that night. Better to leave on their own terms than to be thrown out like garbage. "What are you doing?" Alina asked, watching her mother fold clothes into a worn suitcase. "Getting ready," Rosa said. "We will probably have to leave soon. I want to be prepared." Alina felt like her heart was breaking. This was all her fault. She had ruined everything because she wanted a friend. Now her mother would lose her job, and they would be back on the streets with nothing. "I am sorry, Mama," Alina whispered. "I am so sorry." Rosa stopped packing and pulled her daughter into a hug. I know what neither of them knew was that 3,000 miles away, in a hotel room in London, Jonathan Harrington was watching everything on his phone. He had seen Rosa burst into the music room. He had seen her drag Alina away. He had seen his son reach out toward nothing, calling Elena's name. And he had seen Marcus sink back onto the piano bench, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Jonathan had never seen his son cry before. He had never seen him show any strong emotion at all. Marcus was always so controlled, so careful to keep his feelings hidden. But now, alone in the music room, Marcus let everything out. He cried for Alina, he cried for himself. He cried for all the years of loneliness and all the friends he never had. Jonathan watched for a long time. His hand hovered over his phone. He could call the house right now. He could tell them to fire Rosa and send her away. That was what the old Jonathan would have done. But he was not the old Jonathan anymore. Something had changed in him over these past months. Watching his son's friendship with Alina had opened his eyes. It had shown him what was possible. It had shown him what his son could become with just a little bit of love and connection. If he fired Rosa now, he would destroy all of that. Marcus would go back to being alone. He would close himself off forever. And Jonathan would have proven that he was exactly the cold, heartless man everyone thought he was. No, he would not do that. He could not do that. Jonathan made a decision. He picked up his phone and called his private secretary. "Cancel all my meetings for the next week," he said. "I am going home." Then he made another call, this one to his household manager. There is a maid named Rosa Vasquez, Jonathan said. She and her daughter are not to be fired or punished in any way. In fact, I want them to be treated with respect. I will explain when I arrive. The household manager was confused but agreed. He knew better than to question Mr. Harrington the next morning. Rosa woke up early, expecting to be called to the manager's office and fired. She had barely slept, worrying about what would happen to them. But instead of a termination notice, she received an envelope delivered by a butler. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive paper. It read, "Mrs. Vasquez, you and your daughter Alina are invited to dinner with Mr. Harrington and Marcus this evening at 7 o'clock. Please dress nicely. A car will pick you up at 6:45. Rosa read the note 3 times. She could not understand it. She was supposed to be fired. She was supposed to be on the street. Why was the billionaire inviting them to dinner? Alina grabbed the note and read it. Her eyes went wide. Does this mean we are not in trouble? I do not know, Rosa admitted. I do not know what this means. But one thing was clear. Jonathan Harrington knew about Alina and Marcus's friendship. He had known all along. And instead of destroying them, he was inviting them to dinner. Maybe the world did not always work the way Rosa thought it did. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The hours before dinner felt like years. Alina changed her clothes 5 times, trying to find something that looked nice enough for a billionaire's dining room. She only had a few dresses, and none of them seemed right. Finally, her mother helped her choose a simple blue dress that Alina had worn to church back in the Bronx. "You look beautiful," Rosa said, smoothing down Alina's hair. But her voice was tight with worry. She still did not understand what was happening. Why would Jonathan Harrington invite them to dinner? What did he want from them? Rosa wore her best black dress, the one she had saved for special occasions. She looked at herself in the small mirror and tried to stand tall. Whatever happened tonight, she would face it with dignity. At exactly 6:45, a butler came to their door. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He led them through the mansion, past rooms Alina had cleaned but never entered as a guest. Everything looked different now. The chandeliers seemed brighter. The paintings seemed more important. Alina felt like she was walking through a museum. The dining room was enormous. A long table stretched from one end to the other, with enough chairs for 40 people. But tonight, only 4 places were set at one end of the table. Crystal glasses sparkled in the candlelight. Silver forks and knives were arranged perfectly beside white plates. Marcus was already there, sitting in one of the chairs. He wore a nice suit and had combed his hair neatly. When he heard Alina and Rosa enter, he turned his head toward them. His face was nervous but hopeful. He said quietly. "I am here," Alina replied. She wanted to run to him, to tell him everything was okay, that she felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, holding her back. Then another door opened, and Jonathan Harrington walked in. Alina had never seen him in person before. She had only heard about him from the servants and seen his picture in the hallway. But pictures did not capture what he was really like. He was tall and broad, with dark hair that was turning gray at the edges. His face was handsome but tired, with deep lines around his eyes. He wore an expensive suit that probably cost more than everything Alina's family owned. But it was his eyes that struck Alina the most. They were gray, just like Marcus's eyes, and they held the same sadness, the same loneliness, hidden behind a wall of control. Jonathan looked at Rosa and Alina for a long moment. His face showed nothing. Then he turned to his son. "Marcus," he said. His voice was deep and formal. "I believe you know our guests." Marcus nodded. His hands were gripping the edge of the table. "Yes, father. This is Alina. She is my friend." The word friend hung in the air. Jonathan walked slowly to the head of the table and sat down. He gestured for Rosa and Alina to take their seats. Rosa sat stiffly, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Alina sat next to Marcus, close enough to feel his arm trembling. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Servants brought out the first course, a soup that Alina did not recognize. She watched her mother pick up the correct spoon and did the same. The soup was delicious, but Alina could barely taste it. Her stomach was tied in knots. Finally, Jonathan broke the silence. "Mrs. Vasquez," he said, looking at Rosa. "How long have you worked here?" Rosa swallowed nervously. "Almost 1 year, sir. And do you like working here?" "Yes, sir, very much. It is a good job. I am grateful for it." Jonathan nodded slowly. He took a sip of wine, still studying Rosa with those cold gray eyes. Alina felt her mother tense beside her. "Your daughter," Jonathan continued, "has been visiting my son at night. Did you know about this?" Rosa's face went pale. "No, sir. I only found out last night. I am very sorry. It will never happen again. I promise." "It will never happen again," Jonathan repeated. He was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to look at Marcus, really look at him. For the first time in years, Marcus sat perfectly still. His unseeing eyes stared straight ahead. His jaw was tight, like he was preparing for a blow. He expected his father to be angry. He expected to be punished. That was how it had always been. But Jonathan did not look angry. He looked something else. Something Alina could not quite name. Sad, maybe. or regretful. Marcus, Jonathan said slowly, how long has Elena been visiting you? Marcus hesitated. He did not want to get Elena in more trouble, but he also did not want to lie to his father. Almost 1 year, he admitted quietly, since a few weeks after she arrived. 1 year, Jonathan said. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. 1 year you have had a friend, and I knew nothing about it. That was a lie. Of course, Jonathan had known for months. He had watched every moment on his cameras, but he could not tell Marcus that. He could not explain how he had been too afraid to come home, too afraid to be a real father, so he had watched from a distance instead. Father, Marcus said, his voice shaking, please do not fire Rosa. Please do not send Elena away. She is the only friend I have ever had. If you punish her, punish me instead. I am the one who wanted her to come. Elena's heart broke at his words. Marcus was trying to protect her, to take all the blame. She could not let him do that. It was my choice too, Elena said quickly. I wanted to be his friend. I knew I was breaking the rules, but I did not care. Marcus was lonely. Someone had to help him. She looked directly at Jonathan, meeting his gray eyes without fear. He is your son. He is brilliant and talented and kind, but you left him all alone. Someone had to care about him. Rosa gasped. Elena, you cannot speak to Mr. Harrington that way. But Jonathan held up his hand. No, he said quietly. Let her speak. Elena's heart was pounding, but she continued. I know we are just servants. I know we are poor and you are rich. But Marcus is a person. He deserves to have friends. He deserves to be happy. And if you fire us for being kind to him, then you are not the man your son deserves as a father. The room went completely silent. Rosa looked like she might faint. Marcus's mouth had fallen open in shock. No one had ever spoken to Jonathan Harrington like that. No one had ever dared. Jonathan stared at Elena for a long, long moment. His face was impossible to read. Elena waited for the explosion, for the anger, for the order to pack their bags and leave. But instead, something unexpected happened. Jonathan Harrington smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of his lips, but it transformed his whole face. For a moment, he did not look like a cold billionaire. He looked like a tired father who had finally heard the truth. You are right, Jonathan said softly. You are absolutely right. He turned to Marcus, and his voice changed. It became gentler, more uncertain. Son, I owe you an apology. I have not been a good father. I have not been any kind of father at all. I was so caught up in my own pain that I forgot about yours. Marcus did not move. He did not seem to believe what he was hearing. I cannot change the past, Jonathan continued, but I can change the future, if you will let me. He reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. It was the first time they had touched in years. Marcus flinched at first, surprised. Then, slowly, carefully, he wrapped his fingers around his father's hand. I do not understand, Marcus whispered. Why now? Why tonight? Jonathan looked at Elena. Because a brave girl reminded me what really matters. And because watching you two together showed me what I have been missing. He paused. I have been watching, Marcus, the security cameras. I have seen everything for months. Your piano lessons. Your conversations. Your friendship. Marcus's face went through several emotions at once. Shock, confusion, anger, and finally, something like hope. You were watching? Marcus asked. All this time? Yes. I was too afraid to come home. Too afraid to face you. But I watched because I could not stay away completely. And what I saw changed me. Jonathan squeezed his son's hand. I saw you laugh for the first time in years. I saw you come alive. And I realized that I have wasted so much time. Time I can never get back. Tears were streaming down Marcus's face now. He did not try to hide them. Father, he said, his voice breaking, I thought you hated me. I thought you were ashamed of me. Jonathan's own eyes were wet. I was never ashamed of you, son. I was ashamed of myself, of my own weakness, of my inability to be the father you needed. He stood up and walked around the table. Then he did something he had not done since Marcus was a baby. He wrapped his arms around his son and held him tight. I am sorry, Jonathan whispered. I am so sorry. Marcus hugged him back, holding on like he might never let go. Father and son, finally connected after years of distance. Elena watched with tears in her own eyes. Rosa was crying too, quietly, her hand pressed over her mouth. This was not what either of them had expected. This was something much better. When Jonathan finally pulled back, he wiped his eyes and turned to Rosa and Elena. Mrs. Vasquez, he said, I have a proposition for you. Rosa straightened in her chair, still stunned by everything she had witnessed. I do not want to lose you, Jonathan said. And more importantly, I do not want Marcus to lose Elena, so I have an offer. He told them about his plan. Rosa would become the household manager, with a much higher salary and a private cottage on the grounds. Elena would join Marcus's homeschool program, studying with the same tutors, getting the same education. I am not paying you to be Marcus's friend, Jonathan said firmly. That must remain genuine. But I am giving Elena the same opportunities my son has. It is the least I can do. Rosa was speechless. This was beyond anything she had ever dreamed. A better job. The changes in the Harrington household happened quickly. Within a week, Rosa and Alina moved into a beautiful cottage near the main house. It had 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a small garden with flowers. Rosa cried when she saw it. She had never lived anywhere so nice in her entire life. Elena's education began immediately. She joined Marcus for lessons with his private tutors, studying math, science, literature, and history. The tutors were strict and demanding, but Alina worked hard. She was behind at first, having attended underfunded public schools her whole life. But she was smart and determined, and Marcus helped her catch up. "You think too much," Marcus told her one day when she was struggling with a math problem. "Math is like music. You have to feel it, not just think it." "That does not make any sense," Alina complained. "Close your eyes," Marcus said. "Stop looking at the numbers. Listen to the pattern. Every equation is a song." Alina thought he was crazy, but she closed her eyes and tried to hear what he heard. And slowly, strangely, it started to work. The numbers began to flow together in her mind, forming patterns she could almost hear. "I think I understand," she said finally. Bach smiled. "See, I told you, math is music." Their friendship continued to grow, but now it was out in the open. They no longer had to sneak around at night. They could spend time together whenever they wanted. They played piano, studied, walked in the gardens, and talked for hours about everything under the sun. But the biggest change was in Jonathan. First, Alina did not trust him. She had heard too many stories about his coldness, his distance, his inability to love his own son. She expected him to go back to his old ways as soon as the novelty wore off. Rich people made promises all the time. They rarely kept them. But Jonathan surprised her. He cancelled business trips to stay home with Marcus. He attended every tutoring session, sitting quietly in the corner, listening to his son learn. He asked questions about Marcus's interests, his music, his thoughts about the world. It was awkward at first. Father and son did not know how to talk to each other. They had spent so many years apart that they were like strangers. But slowly, carefully, they began to build a relationship. Jonathan started learning how to describe things to Marcus. He would sit in the garden and tell his son about the flowers, the trees, the shapes of the clouds. His descriptions were clumsy at first, nothing like Elena's vivid pictures, but Marcus appreciated the effort. "The roses are blooming," Jonathan said one afternoon. "They are red, very red, like blood, I suppose, or fire." Marcus laughed gently. "That sounds dangerous. Are the roses going to attack us?" Jonathan chuckled, embarrassed. "I am not good at this. Alina makes it sound so beautiful. I make it sound like a horror movie." "You will get better," Marcus said. "Keep trying." So Jonathan kept trying. Day after day, week after week, he practiced describing the world to his son. And slowly, he did get better. He learned to notice details he had never paid attention to before. The way sunlight moved across a room, the different sounds of rain on different surfaces, the smell of bread baking in the kitchen. "I have been alive for 45 years, Jonathan told Alina one evening, "and I never really paid attention to any of this. Marcus cannot see, but he taught me how to look." Alina smiled. She was starting to trust Jonathan. Not completely, not yet, but she could see that he was genuinely trying to change, and that counted for something. Rosa, too, was adjusting to her new life. Being household manager was very different from being a maid. She was in charge of 20 servants, managing schedules, handling problems, making sure everything ran smoothly. It was hard work, but she was good at it. More importantly, she was no longer invisible. The other servants respected her. Jonathan listened to her opinions. She had a voice in this house, a position of importance. For a woman who had spent her whole life being overlooked, it meant everything. "Do you think this is real?" Rosa asked Alina one night. They were sitting in their cozy cottage, drinking tea. "Sometimes I wake up and think I am dreaming." Alina understood what her mother meant. Their lives had changed so dramatically that it seemed impossible. Just a year ago, they had been poor and desperate. Now they lived in a beautiful cottage, had good jobs, and were part of something that felt almost like a family. "I think it is real," Alina said. "But I also think we should be careful. Things can change quickly." Rosa nodded. "You are wise, Mia. We should enjoy this, but we should not forget where we came from." 3 months passed, then 6 months, then a year. The arrangement held. Jonathan continued to be present and involved. Marcus continued to thrive. Elena's grades improved until she was at the top of the class, even beating Marcus in some subjects. "You are too competitive," Marcus teased her after she scored higher on a history test. "And you are too confident," Alina shot back. "Someone needs to keep you humble." Their banter was easy and comfortable. They had become more than friends. They were like brother and sister, 2 halves of the same whole, that they could communicate without words, understanding each other's moods with just a touch or a sound. Jonathan watched their relationship with a mixture of joy and sadness. Joy because his son was happy. Sadness because he knew he could never give Marcus what Alina gave him. Their bond was special, built on a foundation of shared experience and genuine understanding. Jonathan was an outsider, trying to earn his way in, but he did not give up. He kept showing up, kept trying, kept pushing through the awkwardness and the discomfort. And gradually, Marcus began to let him in. The first time Marcus called him dad instead of father was a moment Jonathan would never forget. They were sitting at the piano together, and Jonathan was attempting to play a simple melody that Marcus had taught him. His fingers were clumsy, hitting wrong notes constantly. No, Marcus said, laughing. Your timing is all wrong. Like this, he put his hands over Jonathan's and guided them to the right keys. Father and son, playing together, their hands moving in harmony. Thanks, Dad, Marcus said when they finished. Jonathan's breath caught in his throat. Dad, such a simple word, such a huge meaning. He had to blink hard to keep from crying. You are welcome, son, he managed to say. From then on, Jonathan was dad, not father, cold and formal. Dad, warm and close. It was a small change, but it meant everything. But Alina watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction. She had been the bridge that connected them. Her friendship with Marcus had opened Jonathan's eyes. Her honesty at the dinner table had pushed him to change. She had done something that all the money in the world could not do. She had healed a broken family, but Alina also knew that her role was changing. In the beginning, Marcus had needed her desperately. She was his only connection to the world, his only friend. Now he had his father too. Their bond was growing stronger every day. Alina was happy about this. She truly was. Marcus deserved a loving father. But sometimes, late at night, she wondered what her place was in all of this. She was not a Harrington. She was the maid's daughter, invited into this world but never truly part of it. Rosa noticed her daughter's quietness. What is wrong, Mia? She asked one evening. Alina shrugged. Nothing. I am just thinking. About what? About the future. About where I belong. Rosa took her daughter's hand. You belong wherever your heart is. Do not let anyone tell you different. Alina smiled. Her mother always knew the right thing to say. Meanwhile, Jonathan had started teaching Marcus about the family business. He explained how the company worked, how decisions were made, how to read financial reports. Marcus absorbed everything like a sponge. I thought you wanted me hidden away, Marcus said one day. I thought you were ashamed of me. Jonathan shook his head firmly. I was wrong. I was so wrong. You are brilliant, Marcus. You could run this company better than I ever did. I want to teach you everything I know, even though I am blind. Your blindness is not a weakness, Jonathan said. It is a different way of seeing. You notice things that others miss. You think in ways that others cannot. That is not a disability. That is a superpower. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. A superpower. I like that. 2 years passed since the dinner that changed everything. Marcus was 16 now. Alina had just turned 15. They were no longer children, but teenagers on the edge of adulthood. Their friendship had survived and grown, but something else was growing too. Something neither of them had expected. Something that would soon complicate everything. Alina did not realize it yet. Marcus did not want to admit it, but the feelings between them were changing. The easy comfort of friendship was slowly transforming into something deeper, something more dangerous. Soon, the whole world would find out. It was a warm spring afternoon when the photograph was taken. Alina and Marcus were walking through the garden, as they did almost every day. The roses were in full bloom, filling the air with their sweet perfume. Birds sang in the trees. It was a perfect day. They were talking about music. As usual, Marcus had been practicing a new piece by Beethoven, and he was excited to perform it at his upcoming recital. Alina listened as he described the emotion of the music, the way it built from soft sadness to powerful triumph. You will be amazing, Alina said. You always are. Marcus smiled. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand. It was a natural gesture, something they had done many times before. But lately it felt different. There was an electricity in his touch that made Alina's heart beat faster. She did not pull away. She let him hold her hand as they walked through the garden. Two teenagers lost in their own world. What they did not know was that someone was watching. The Harrington estate was private property, surrounded by high walls and security cameras. But one determined photographer had found a spot on a hill nearby, where he could see into the garden with a powerful zoom lens. He had been staking out the mansion for weeks, hoping to get a picture of the famous billionaire. But what he found was even better. The photograph showed Marcus and Alina walking hand in hand, their faces turned toward each other, smiling. It was an innocent image, but to the tabloid world, it was pure gold. The headline appeared the next morning, splashed across the front page of every gossip website and magazine in the country. Billionaire's blind heir in secret romance with Maid's daughter. The story was full of wild speculation. It claimed that Alina was a gold digger who had seduced the vulnerable blind boy for his money. It painted Rosa as a scheming mother who had orchestrated the whole thing. It described the Harrington family as dysfunctional and scandalous. None of it was true. But truth did not matter to the tabloids. What mattered was clicks and sales. And this story was getting millions of both. Jonathan found out about the story when his phone started ringing at 6 in the morning. His public relations team was in a panic. Investors were calling, demanding explanations. Board members were threatening emergency meetings. The company's stock price had dropped 5% overnight. This is a disaster, his chief communications officer said. We need to get ahead of this. We need to issue a statement. Jonathan sat at his desk, staring at the photograph on his computer screen. Marcus and Elena holding hands, looking happy. There was nothing scandalous about it. They were just two teenagers who cared about each other, but the world did not see it that way. The world saw a rich heir and a poor maid's daughter. The world saw a story too juicy to resist. Before Jonathan could decide what to do, more problems arrived. His mother, Victoria Harrington, called from Palm Beach. Victoria was 75 years old and as sharp as ever. She had never approved of Jonathan's decision to let the maid's daughter live on the estate. Now she was furious. "I told you this would happen," Victoria said, her voice cold and cutting. "I warned you that girl would cause trouble. And now look, the family name is being dragged through the mud." "Mother, this is not Elena's fault," Jonathan said. "Someone took a photograph without permission. That is not a crime on her part." "Do not be naive," Victoria snapped. "That girl has been playing a long game. She attached herself to Marcus, knowing he was lonely and vulnerable. She made herself indispensable. And now she is positioning herself to inherit everything." Jonathan felt his anger rising. "Elena is 15 years old. She is not some criminal mastermind. She is the maid's daughter," Victoria said. "People like that will do anything to climb the social ladder. You need to send her away before she does more damage." "I am not sending anyone away." "Then I will come there myself and handle this," Victoria threatened. "The board meets next week. If you do not remove that family from the estate, I will make sure the board removes you from the company." She hung up before Jonathan could respond. Meanwhile, Marcus and Elena had discovered the photograph. One of the household servants had shown them on her phone, her face full of concern. They stared at the screen in shock. "They are saying I am using you," Elena whispered, her voice shaking. "They are saying I only want your money." Marcus's face was pale with anger. "That is a lie. That is a complete lie. But people believe it. Look at the comments." Elena scrolled through the comments beneath the article. They were brutal. People called her horrible names. They said she should be ashamed. They said she was taking advantage of a blind boy who could not see her true nature. Tears streamed down Elena's face. She had never felt so exposed, so violated. Her private friendship had been turned into something ugly in public. Marcus reached out and took her hands. "Do not read those," he said firmly. "Those people do not know us. They do not know anything about us." "But what if your father believes them? What if he sends us away?" Marcus shook his head. "He will not. He has changed. He understands." But Elena was not so sure. She had seen how quickly things could change in this world. One moment you were safe, the next moment you were on the street. She had learned that lesson many times before. The next few days were chaos. Reporters camped outside the estate gates. The phone rang constantly. The household staff whispered among themselves, taking sides. Some defended Elena, others thought she should leave. Rosa was devastated. She had worked so hard to build a good life for herself and her daughter. Now everything was falling apart. She started packing their bags again, just as she had done before the famous dinner. "We should go," Rosa told Elena, "before they throw us out." "No," Elena said. "I will not run. I did nothing wrong. This is not about right and wrong, Mia. This is about survival." But Elena refused to leave. She refused to let the world define who she was. She had fought too hard to find her place here. She would not give it up without a fight. Jonathan was fighting his own battle. The board meeting was approaching, and his mother had been making calls to every board member, poisoning them against him. He could feel his control over the company slipping away. His communications team had prepared a statement. It was carefully worded, designed to satisfy the board without actually throwing anyone under the bus. It spoke of reassigning the Vasquez family to a different property where they could have more privacy. In other words, exile, hidden away where they would not embarrass the Harrington name. Jonathan stared at the statement for a long time. All he had to do was approve it, and the crisis would be over. The board would calm down. The stock price would recover. His mother would stop threatening him. But then he thought about Marcus. His son had been happier these past 2 years than ever before. He had a friend, a real friend, who loved him for who he was. He was learning, growing, becoming the man he was meant to be. All because of Elena. If Jonathan sent her away, what would happen to Marcus? Would he close himself off again? Would he sink back into the lonely darkness where Jonathan had left him for so many years? Jonathan could not do that. He would not do that. He thought about what Elena had said at that dinner 2 years ago. "If you fire us for being kind to him, then you are not the man your son deserves as a father." She was right then, and those words were still true now. Jonathan picked up the statement his team had prepared. He read it one more time. Then he tore it in half and threw it in the trash. He would not sacrifice his son's happiness for money. He would not let the world tell him what his family should look like. He had made that mistake once before, hiding Marcus away like something to be ashamed of. He would not make it again. Jonathan made a decision. He would go to the board meeting, but he would not go with an apology. He would go with a fight. The storm was coming, but Jonathan Harrington was ready to face it, and this time he would not face it alone. The boardroom was silent when Jonathan walked in. 12 faces stared at him from around the long polished table. Some looked sympathetic, others looked angry. His mother sat at the far end, her eyes cold and triumphant. She thought she had already won. Jonathan took his seat at the head of the table. He had not slept the night before. He had spent hours preparing what he wanted to say. But now, looking at these faces, he was not sure any of it mattered. These people cared about money and reputation. They did not care about a lonely blind boy and the girl who had saved him. His mother spoke first. "Jonathan, we have all seen the news. This scandal is damaging the company. Our stock price has dropped 12% in 1 week. Investors are pulling out. We cannot let personal matters destroy everything we have built." Several board members nodded in agreement. "What do you propose?" Jonathan asked, keeping his voice calm. "It is simple," Victoria said. "The maid and her daughter must go. Send them to one of our properties in another state, somewhere quiet where the press will not find them. Cut all ties. Let this story die." "And Marcus?" Jonathan asked. "What happens to him?" Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Marcus will be fine. He has lived without friends before. He can do it again." Jonathan felt something hot rise in his chest. Anger. Pure, burning anger. His mother spoke about his son like he was a piece of furniture, something to be managed and controlled. "No," Jonathan said. Victoria's eyebrows rose. "Excuse me, I said no. I will not send them away." The room erupted in murmurs. Board members exchanged glances. This was not what they expected. "Jonathan, be reasonable," said Harold Chen, the chief financial officer. "This is not personal. This is business. The company comes first, does it?" Jonathan stood up from his chair and walked to the window. He looked out at the city below, all the buildings and cars and people going about their lives. "I have spent my whole life putting the company first. I missed my son's childhood because of this company. I let my wife walk away because I was too busy with this company. I have given everything to this company." He turned back to face the room. "And what do I have to show for it? Money, buildings, a name on a stock ticker. None of that matters if I lose my son." "This is emotional thinking," Victoria said sharply. "You are not being rational." "Maybe not," Jonathan admitted, "but I am being a father. For the first time in my life, I am actually being a father." He walked back to his seat but did not sit down. Instead, he picked up his laptop and connected it to the room's display screen. "I want to show you something," Jonathan said. "Before you make your decision, I want you to see what you are asking me to destroy." He pressed play. On the screen, a video began. It was footage from the security cameras in the mansion, edited together over the past 3 years. The board members watched in silence. They saw Marcus alone at the piano, playing sad songs in an empty room. They saw him eating dinner by himself, his face blank and hopeless. They saw a boy who had given up on life. Then they saw Alina appear. They saw her standing in the doorway, listening. They saw her step into the light and sit beside him. They saw Marcus smile for the first time. The video continued. Marcus and Alina playing piano together, laughing at their mistakes. Marcus describing music while Alina described colors. 2 children, completely different, becoming the best of friends. Then came the footage of Jonathan's own transformation, learning to describe the world to his son, sitting at the piano, letting Marcus guide his clumsy fingers. The first time Marcus called him dad. The video ended with the photograph that had started everything. Marcus and Alina in the garden, holding hands, smiling at each other. But now the board members saw it differently. They did not see a scandal. They saw 2 people who loved each other. The room was silent. Several board members had tears in their eyes. Even Victoria looked shaken, though she tried to hide it. Jonathan spoke quietly. "This girl gave me back my son. She saw past his blindness when no one else would. She loved him when even I could not. She is not a gold digger or a schemer. She is a 15-year-old girl with a heart bigger than this entire company." He looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. "You can ask me to choose between this company and my son, but I want you to understand what that choice means. If you force me to send Elena away, you are asking me to break my son's heart. You are asking me to destroy the only real happiness he has ever known." Jonathan paused. "I will not do that. I will burn this company to the ground before I let any of you take her away from him." The words hung in the air. No one moved. No one spoke. No one spoke. Then Harold Chen cleared his throat. "Jonathan, I have known you for 20 years. I've never seen you like this. I've never felt like this." Jonathan admitted. Harold nodded slowly. "That video, I had no idea. We only saw the headlines. We did not see the whole story." Other board members began to speak. They talked about their own children, their own regrets, their own missed moments. The mood in the room shifted. The anger and fear were replaced by something else. Understanding, Victoria saw what was happening. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You are all being manipulated. That video proves nothing. It could have been edited, staged." "Mother," Jonathan said firmly, "that is enough." Victoria's mouth fell open. Jonathan had never spoken to her like that. "For my entire life, I have tried to please you," Jonathan continued. "I built this company because you told me a real man needed an empire. I hid Marcus because you said he was an embarrassment. I pushed away everyone who loved me because you said love made people weak." He shook his head. "I was wrong to listen. You were wrong to say those things. Marcus is not an embarrassment. He is my son. And Alina is not a threat. She is the best thing that ever happened to our family." Victoria's face was red with fury. If you do this, you are no son of mine. Jonathan smiled sadly. Maybe that is for the best. He turned back to the board. I call for a vote. All in favor of requiring the removal of the Vasquez family from the estate. 3 hands went up. Victoria's hand, and 2 others, her loyal supporters. All opposed. The rest of the hands rose. 9 out of 12. A clear majority. Jonathan let out a breath he did not know he was holding. The motion fails. The Vasquez family stays. Victoria stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You will regret this, she said. All of you. She walked out of the boardroom, slamming the door behind her. In the silence that followed, Harold Chen spoke. Jonathan, for what it is worth, I think you made the right choice. Thank you, Harold. But we still have a public relations problem. The story is out there. People believe what they believe. Jonathan nodded. He had thought about this. I will give an interview. A real one, not some scripted press release. I will tell the truth about Marcus, about Alina, about everything. Let the world see what I saw in that video. Harold smiled. That might actually work. People love a good redemption story. Jonathan gathered his things and headed for the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Harold, one more thing. Yes, I am going home to tell my son that Alina is not going anywhere. I am going to tell him that he never has to be afraid of losing her again. Harold nodded. Give him our best. Jonathan walked out of the boardroom and into the elevator. As the doors closed, he felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. The battle was not over. There would be more challenges, more critics, more storms to weather. But he had made his choice. He had chosen his son. He had chosen love over money, family over reputation. And for the first time in his life, Jonathan Harrington knew he had done the right thing. When he got home, he found Marcus and Elena in the music room. They were sitting at the piano, but they were not playing. Alina was crying. Rosa stood nearby, their packed bags by the door. They had been waiting to be sent away. Jonathan walked across the room and knelt in front of his son. Marcus, he said, his voice gentle. Alina is not going anywhere. Neither is Rosa. I fought for you today. I fought for all of us. And we won. Marcus's face crumpled with emotion. Dad, you mean it? I mean it. Jonathan took his son's hands. You are my son. I love you. And anyone who is important to you is important to me. That includes Alina. That includes Rosa. We are a family now. A real family. He looked at Alina, who was still crying, and opened his arms. She ran into them, hugging him tight. Rosa followed, wrapping her arms around all of them. And Marcus, who could not see but could feel everything, held on to all of them at once. 4 people, from different worlds, holding each other in a music room. It was not a traditional family. It was not a perfect family. But it was their family. And nothing would ever tear them apart. 7 years had passed since the boardroom battle that saved their family. 7 years of growth, change, and unexpected blessings. The world had moved on from the scandal, just as Harold Chen had predicted. Jonathan's honest interview had touched millions of hearts. People who had once criticized Alina now admired her. The company's stock price had recovered and then doubled. Everything had worked out better than anyone could have imagined. But tonight was not about business. Tonight was about music. Marcus Harrington stood backstage at Carnegie Hall, the most famous concert venue in the world. He was 22 years old now, tall and handsome, with the same gray eyes that saw nothing but felt everything. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was neatly combed. His hands, the hands that had brought so much beautiful music into the world, were steady and calm. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Playing at Carnegie Hall was the highest honor a pianist could achieve. Critics from around the world had come to hear him. The performance was sold out. Every seat in the vast auditorium was filled. But Marcus was not nervous. He knew exactly who was waiting for him in those seats, and that knowledge gave him all the courage he needed. A stagehand approached him. Mr. Harrington, it is time. Marcus nodded. He took a deep breath, feeling the familiar weight of the moment. Then he walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. 2,000 people rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Marcus could not see them, but he could feel their energy washing over him like a wave. He smiled and bowed, then made his way to the grand piano at center stage. He sat down on the bench and placed his fingers on the keys. The hall fell silent. 2,000 people held their breath. Marcus closed his eyes. Not that it mattered, but it helped him focus. He thought about everything that had brought him to this moment. The lonely nights in the music room, the girl who had appeared in the doorway, the father who had finally learned to love, the family he had built against all odds. Then he began to play. The music that filled Carnegie Hall that night was unlike anything the audience had ever heard. It was technically perfect, of course. Marcus had practiced for thousands of hours, but there was something more. There was emotion, deep and raw, pouring out of every note. He played Beethoven, who had also been cut off from sound. He played Chopin, whose music had first drawn Alina to the doorway. He played original compositions, pieces he had written himself, inspired by colors he had never seen and sunsets described by the girl he loved. In the front row, 3 people watched with tears streaming down their faces. Rosa Vasquez sat on the left, clutching the program like a sacred object. She was 53 now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were as bright as ever. She had come so far from that desperate woman who had packed her bags and prayed for a job. Now she was the household manager of the Harrington estate, respected and valued by everyone. But more importantly, she was a mother who had watched her daughter find love and happiness beyond anything she had ever dreamed. Jonathan Harrington sat on the right, his eyes fixed on his son. He was 60 now, retired from the company he had built, content to spend his days with the family he had almost lost. The cold, distant man he had once been was gone. In his place was a father who never missed a performance, never forgot a birthday, never went a day without telling his son he loved him. And in the center sat Elena Vasquez Harrington, the maid's daughter who had become so much more. She was 21 now, beautiful and confident, with the same warm brown eyes that had once watched a blind boy play piano in the moonlight. She wore a simple, elegant dress. Her dark hair was pulled back, showing the small diamond earrings that Marcus had given her on their wedding day 6 months ago. Yes, wedding day. After years of friendship that had slowly transformed into love, Marcus had proposed on Elena's 20th birthday. He had played her a song he had composed just for her, then asked her to spend the rest of her life with him. She had said yes before he finished the question. Their wedding had been small and private, held in the garden where they had been photographed years before. Only family and close friends attended. Rosa had cried the entire ceremony. Jonathan had walked Elena down the aisle, proudly taking the place of the father she had never known. Now Elena sat in Carnegie Hall, watching her husband perform for the world, her hand resting on the small swell of her belly. She was 3 months pregnant. They had found out last week. Marcus had cried with joy when she told him. A baby, he had whispered, his hands on her stomach. Our baby scared? Elena had asked, terrified. Marcus admitted, but also happier than I have ever been. The music continued to fill the hall. Marcus played for an hour, piece after piece, each one more beautiful than the last. The audience was spellbound. Some people were crying openly. Others sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the emotion pouring from the stage. Finally, Marcus played his last piece. It was the song he had composed for Elena, the one he had played when he proposed. As the final notes faded into silence, the hall erupted. The standing ovation was instant and deafening. People clapped until their hands hurt. They cheered until their voices gave out. Critics who had seen thousands of performances said later that it was the most moving concert they had ever witnessed. Marcus stood from the piano and bowed. The applause continued. He bowed again. Still, it continued. Then he did something unexpected. He walked to the edge of the stage and raised his hand for silence. Slowly, reluctantly, the audience quieted down. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice clear and strong. Thank you all for being here tonight. But before I go, I want to say something. The hall was perfectly silent. 2,000 people waited. I have been blind since birth, Marcus said. For most of my life, I thought that made me broken. I thought I was less than other people. I thought I did not deserve love or friendship or happiness. He paused, his gray eyes glistening with emotion. I was wrong. I was so wrong. He turned toward the front row, toward the 3 people who meant everything to him. Everything I am, I owe to the girl who was not afraid to breathe in the dark. Elena's tears flowed freely now. She did not try to stop them. She found me when I was lost, Marcus continued. She saw me when no one else could. She taught me that blindness is not a weakness. It is just a different way of seeing, and the world she helped me see is more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. He smiled. That same bright smile Elena had first seen in the music room all those years ago. Elena, my wife, my best friend, my everything. This performance was for you. Every note, every song, every moment of my life from now on is for you. I love you more than music. I love you more than anything. The audience erupted again, but Marcus was not finished. And Daddy said, turning slightly to where Jonathan sat, thank you for finding your way back to me. Thank you for fighting for our family. Thank you for showing me that it is never too late to change. Jonathan buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed. And Rosa, Marcus added, thank you for raising the most amazing woman in the world. Thank you for trusting us with your daughter. She is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Rosa sobbed openly, clutching her daughter's hand. Marcus bowed one final time. Thank you all. Good night. The applause lasted for 7 minutes. People stamped their feet and shouted for an encore. But Marcus did not return to the piano. Instead, he walked off the stage and straight to the front row. He found Elena by following her perfume, the same one she had worn since they were teenagers. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, she whispered back. Around them, the audience continued to applaud. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Marcus and Elena did not notice. They were lost in their own world, just as they had been that first night in the music room later. After the crowd had gone and the hall was empty, the 4 of them stood together on the famous stage. Rosa, Jonathan, Marcus, and Elena, the maid, the billionaire, the blind pianist, and the girl who had started it all. Look at us, Rosa said, shaking her head in wonder. Who would have believed it? Jonathan put his arm around her shoulders. Over the years, They had become close friends. He relied on her wisdom and honesty. She appreciated his transformation and growth. I would have believed it, Jonathan said, because I watched it happen. Every moment, from the very beginning. Marcus laughed. You and your cameras, Dad. Best investment I ever made. Jonathan replied. Those cameras brought me back to you. Alina leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder. What happens now? She asked. Marcus smiled and placed his hand on her belly, where their child was growing. Now we live, he said. We love, we make music and babies and memories. We build a family even bigger and stronger than we already have. He turned his face toward his wife, his father, his mother. The three people who had saved him from a lifetime of darkness would breathe in the dark, Marcus said softly. Together, they stood there for a long moment, for people from different worlds, united by love and chance and the courage to believe in something better. Outside, the city sparkled with lights that Marcus could not see, but he did not need to see them. Alina would describe them to him later, painting pictures with her words, being his eyes as she had promised so long ago.